Once upon a time, in a small village in Japan, lived a kind elderly couple. For many years, they wished for a child, but had none. They prayed day and night, hoping the gods would hear their plea. One day, their wish was granted, but in a very peculiar way. The woman gave birth to a son, but he was no bigger than her thumb. They loved him dearly all the same, and named him Issun, which means 1-inch boy. Despite his tiny size, Issun was full of courage and spirit. He helped his parents with chores as best he could, using a needle as a sword and a single grain of rice as his meal. As he grew older, though never in size, he yearned to see the world and make a name for himself. He told his parents, "I am going to the capital city to become a samurai and seek my fortune." His parents were worried, but they saw the determination in his eyes. For his journey, his mother fashioned him a sword from a sewing needle, and his father gave him a rice bowl for a boat and a chopstick for an oar. Waving a tearful goodbye, Issun set sail down the river. His tiny boat bobbing along the current, headed for the grand capital. After a long and adventurous journey, he finally arrived in the bustling city. He made his way to the grandest mansion, which belonged to a wealthy lord. Standing at the gate, he shouted as loudly as his tiny lungs would allow, "I have come to offer my services." The guards laughed, unable to see who was speaking. But Issun persisted, and eventually the Lord himself came out, amused and impressed by the boy's bravery. The Lord hired him as a companion and bodyguard for his beautiful daughter, the princess. Issun took his duty very seriously. He would ride in the princess's sleeve or pocket, always watching over her. The princess was very fond of her tiny protector and enjoyed his company. One day, as they were walking to a temple, 2 terrifying oni, or demons, sprang from the shadows and attacked them. The larger oni tried to grab the princess. Without a moment's hesitation, Issun leaped into action. He drew his needle sword and bravely charged the monster. The oni, annoyed by the tiny warrior, simply picked him up and swallowed him whole. But this was Issun chance. Inside the Oni's dark stomach, he used his needle sword to poke and stab relentlessly. The Oni roared in pain, clutching its belly. The tickling and stabbing were too much to bear. "Ouch! Stop! Get out!" it bellowed. The Oni coughed and gagged until it spat Issun out onto the ground. The other Oni, seeing his companion in such agony, dropped a magical object and fled in terror. It was the mallet of luck, an enchanted hammer that could grant any wish. The princess rushed to Issun side, overjoyed that he was safe. She picked up the magical mallet and said, "Issun, you were so brave. I wish for you to become a sized, handsome samurai." She tapped him gently with the mallet, and a brilliant light enveloped him. In a flash, the 1-inch boy began to grow and grow and grow until he stood before her as a tall, handsome young man. He was no longer Issun, but a noble warrior. The Lord was overjoyed to hear of his bravery and granted him permission to marry the princess. They returned to the palace, where they were celebrated as heroes. Issun boshi, now a great samurai, never forgot his humble beginnings. He sent for his elderly parents, and they all lived together, happily and prosperously, for the rest of their days. And the once tiny boy proved to everyone that courage and a good heart are far more important than size.